want to say shalom to you all, Mashpakai. It is wonderful to be here on this evening. It is great to see each and every one of you. I want to greet the family here on Fuse and also the family on Facebook and the family on YouTube. We give Yahuah praise and thanks for yet another opportunity to come together once again. And for this evening's Foundational Facts Fellowship, we have a very interesting and important subject to discuss, family, and it is my hope that our discussion this evening that it will be a barakah to you. We certainly give Yahuah all honor and all esteem. Let me get back to Fuse here, if I can, and just take a moment to greet the family here on Fuse, and let me just give me just a moment to get together here, family. Let me say shalom to Akut Sharia. It is wonderful to see you on this evening, Akut, and also to Akut Carmen. I greet you, Akut, in the name of Yahuah. Great to see you as always. To my Adelaide, wonderful to see you as always, Akut Adelaide, and also to Akut Willie. Greetings to you, in the name of Yahuah. Also to my Akut Yahu. It is great to see you as always. To my Akut Mahalia. Greetings to you, Akut Mahalia, in the name of Yahuah, and also to Akut Jeanette. Family, it is wonderful to see you on this evening. Also want to greet the family listening in from Facebook, and again, as I mentioned before, the family joining us via YouTube. Greetings to you all, Mashpaka, in the name of Yahuah. Hallelujah. Okay, so this evening, I titled this evening's Foundational Facts Fellowship, I titled it The Origin and Rise of the Caucasian. The Origin and Rise of the Caucasian. Let me just say this as we prepare to begin, that the intent of this study is not to be offensive to anyone based on race. But you know, we're living at a time. We're living in a time where Yahuah is lifting the veil. And he is revealing the hoaxes, the many hoax there are out there, the many fibs, the many lies that have been told us. And you know, when it comes to the subject of race, much damage has been done in that regard. First and foremost, it is important for us to understand, it is important for everyone to understand that it was not until Europe invented something called race that something called race existed. And that was only invented. The idea of race was only invented in the 1800s, you see. And after they invented race, they then put in place a system to benefit one so-called race in particular. And the race that the system was to benefit was to be what they then defined as the white race. Any other people. So others were ascribed or assigned other races. And everybody else were to be seen as not being fully human, not being completely human. And so they were they were to be looked down on. If you were not white, then you were not fully human, and therefore you did not deserve to be treated in the same way as a white person. You did not deserve to be respected in the same way that a white person would be respected, so on and so forth. Out of that system, and so that is the system that gives us racism. You see, racism, and so it's a system built to esteem, to elevate one so-called race above another. Well, this evening we're going to look at the origin of white skin. We're going to look at the origin of the Caucasian, so to speak. And again, the purpose of our reflection here on this evening is not to be offensive to any individual based on their race. Again, as I like to say, that what we seek is the truth, the whole truth, and absolutely nothing but the truth. What we seek again is the truth, the whole truth, and absolutely nothing but the contextual truth. And so that is what we seek, family, and that's what we're digging for. And we are at a time, we're living in a time where Yahuah is revealing is truth, where he is exposing the lies. You know, this evening I saw a commercial. It's a new commercial put out by Donald Trump. And I'm not here to talk politics this evening, but I can't help but make this point. I saw this commercial, a new commercial put out by Donald Trump this evening. And what the commercial is saying is something that they have been saying for quite some time. But what the commercial is suggesting is that racial tension in America today is higher than it has ever been. Basically, is the point they're trying to make. Because of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. They say that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton has made the elections about race. Now, when I see a commercial like that, the way I look at it is I think that Donald Trump thinks that black people are really stupid. Because the fact of the matter is that while Obama might have came out here or there and might have made a couple of comments in support of black people, and the injustice, you see, is speaking against the injustice that plagues black people, while he might have come out here and there and said a couple things about it, Barack Obama has truly not been a forceful mouthpiece for black people. Barack Obama certainly have not been that for black people. And so to say that racial tensions in America is as high as they are because of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Love gives me so much purpose. Your love is so precious. Your love gives me reason to wake up. Your love gives me reason to smile. Your love gives me so much purpose. Your love is so precious to me. Everybody wondering why I'm so happy today. 'Cause Yahuah gave us Yahusha, that's true love to me. If you were in my shoes, I know that you'd be happy too. Because he brought me through, and I hope he does the same for you. Your love gives me reason to wake up. Your love gives me reason to smile. Your love gives me so much purpose. Your love is so precious. Your love gives me reason to wake up. Your love gives me reason to smile. That's why your love gives me so much purpose. Your love is so precious to me. Think about all the things Yahuah has done for you. Think about all the things Yahuah has brought you through. Oh, he's brought you. Think about all the things Yahuah has done for you. He's done for you. Think about all the things Yahuah has brought you through. Oh, I need to make you smile, 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 smile. Smile, 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 smile. It will make you smile. Yahuah makes you smile, 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 makes you smile. Yahuah makes you smile, smile, smile. Okay, family, it is my hope that the echo went away, that I try to make some adjustments in hopes that that would fix the problem. So I'm hoping that it's gone. All right, so we're on the subject of the origin of white skin and the rise of the Caucasian. That's how we have titled our study for this evening. And again, I just want to say that this is not intended to be any kind of insult against any particular so-called race, or any peoples for that matter. And I say so-called race because even the idea of race is something that was invented for the purpose of white supremacy. And so that's what we're on this evening. Now, I was talking about my recent experience and some of what's going on in the news currently, and the racial tension in America as it is right now, and talking about some of the venom that you see coming from some people, from some Caucasians, even towards another Caucasian, so like Hillary Clinton in particular, talking about just hearing how they refer to her, and my point in bringing that up is to make the point that when this idea of racism was invented and propagated, the privilege that it presented to people of that race, and I must say that even whites who are not aware of the privilege of being white, whether they're aware of it or not, they are still privileged because it's a part of the system that was developed, a system of white privilege. And so many people who have benefited from that system have come to be very protective of the system, very protective of the system. And that's why you have you see that kind of venom, and you see that kind of denial, and people not wanting to admit that there is a bias, there is an innate bias in the American system, and not just the American system, but in the European system, because America is Europe, you see, in the sense that America is occupied by Europeans. And so there is this innate bias, and they're very protective of it, and so that's what you see happening today. So this evening we're talking about the origin of the white skin and the rise of the Caucasian. We have a lot of stuff to cover, family. I want to begin by sharing with you a little bit from a documentary, and then we want to go to the scriptures. Now, when it comes to the scriptures, there's a doctrine out there that teaches that that basically white people came out of Abraham, right? That that basically going to Bereshit chapter 25, where it speaks about two nations in what's her name, in the womb, and so it's not correct, you see, not correct, because that's not where it begins. Yes, Rakal, right? So it's not correct. That's not the correct teaching. Okay, that's not where white people came from. It's not that she gave birth to one black and one white person, you see. But the white race actually existed even before then. The white race, and I say race, tongue in cheek, because in reality there is no race. Again, whites invented that for the purpose of privilege. Okay, but white skin was around long before that occurrence in Bereshit chapter 25. So that teaching is actually false. It's incorrect. But there are a lot of people out there who have that teaching, and they teach that the white man is what you call Esau, Ashu, And that's the white man is Edom teaching, or the white man is Adum teaching. Now, concerning Edom, or Adum, more correctly, Adum, we do know that Adum today is represented by European nations, but not because of their skin color, but rather because of their behavior. Okay? So we know that Adum today are the European nations. The scriptures tells us that from a prophetic perspective, the scriptures tells us that Adum today are the European nations. You see? But not from the basis of skin color, but rather from the basis of behavior. You see, Adum was, and everything in the scriptures tells us that Adum, the people of Adum, were a black people. Now, in the book of Yashar, it tells us where they form an alliance. They formed an alliance with Caucasians, with whites. But that doesn't mean that they miraculously morphed into being white, you see, because that's not what happened. If Adum eventually became white, was because of breeding, but not simply because they formed an alliance. No, that alliance made them white, you see. But historically and scripturally, Adum was black. Now we know that prophetically today, Adum is represented by the European nations. Okay, so this evening we have a lot to cover as far as scriptures go. Okay, and so and listen, any person who defines people based on the color of their skin, any person who define people just broadly, any person who broadly define the abilities and characteristics of a person based on the color of their skin, that person is a racist, whether you're black or white. Okay? If you just broadly define people based on the color of their skin, if you say that because this person is white, broadly, if I come up here and I say to you that any person with white skin and every person with white skin is just helplessly wicked, they can't help themselves but to be wicked. Also, they can't help themselves but to be stupid because of their white skin. Or they can't help themselves but to be that because of their white skin. Or you flip that on the other side and say because of their black skin they're just stupid. Because of their black skin they're lazy. Because of their black skin they're this. Anybody who makes such a statement, that person is a racist. Okay? Anyone who makes such a statement, that person is a racist. And I think one thing is true about a racist. I think one thing is true about a racist, and that is that every racist person is severely mentally they have mental problems. You see, severely mentally retarded. Thank you, Akut. I couldn't remember the word. Okay, severely mentally retarded, severely mentally ill. You see. So please understand that I'm not here to paint anybody with a broad brush. Okay, I do believe in the facts, and that's what we're going to deal with. Now, family, we have been lied to about everything. We have been lied to concerning everything because of that white power system. You see, we have been lied to about the origin of man. We have been lied to about the way that the first man looked. We have been lied to about where the garden was located. We have been lied to about who the people of the scriptures are. We have been lied to about everything. There's not one thing that they have not fondled with. There's not one thing that a people, who have this sick zeal for power. and this hatred, you know, individuals who have this sick zeal for power, and coupled with hatred based on how somebody looked. There is nothing that they have not touched, that they have not messed with, you see, to seek to put themselves on top and to put others down. Okay? So we have been lied to about everything. So this evening, as we prepare to begin here on the subject of the origin of white skin and the rise of the Caucasian, what I'd like to do is I'd like to begin by sharing a bit of a video from National Geographic on the first Adam, the first man. Okay? And so that's what I'm going to do first and foremost. I'm going to be sharing a video from a bit of that video on the first Adam. It's a video from National Geographic, and so I'll be putting that on the screen, and then after the video we're going to come back and we're going to get into some scriptures. A lot of scriptures to cover. Hopefully I can cover a great deal of it. I don't believe I can cover all of it this evening, but I'm going to try to cover as much as possible. Let me just say again, shalom to you all, mashpaka, those that I have not yet greeted. Akut Yolanda, it is wonderful to see you, Akut. I want to say shalom to you and shalom to my Aki Yaram Yahu. It is indeed a delight and a baraka to see you on this evening, Akut, and to all the rest of the family, Akut Amuna, all of you family, it is great to see you. So I'm going to put this video up on the screen because we have a lot to get into. I'm going to try to get that. Aki Trevin, shalom to you, Aki. All of you family, shalom. And so I'm going to put this to the Rabbah. I'm going to put this on the screen, and then we're going to go to some scriptures. Okay, we're going to get into the scriptures. So let me get this video going. Hopefully the echo that we were getting from YouTube, hopefully that echo is gone. I'm hoping it's gone. I'm going to go ahead and start this video. I'm not playing the entire video, but I'm going to play quite a bit of it. This is dealing with the first Adam. Of course, we have been taught everything we've been taught. If you were like I, going to Sunday school when you were little, you know, I remember going to Sunday school and they had Bibles with pictures in them. And also the pictures that they put up for you in Sunday school, everything and everybody in it looked white. Everybody was white, right? And even when you grew up and you went to church, and you know, as a grown person, you went to school and wherever you went, everything and everyone were white. There were no place for black people in the white power structure. There is no place where black people are represented in the scriptures except when it comes to bad things, negative things. And so they say that Ham, for example, the son of Noah, the son of Nach, that he was a black man. They'll give you that. And they say he was black because he was cursed. Okay, this evening we're going to talk a little bit about that also. We're going to talk about that lying doctrine about the curse of Ham, because it's still being taught in Christianity today. The curse of Ham. Many people believe that Ham was cursed, and that because he was cursed, that's why he was black. But you see, the reality is, the fact of the matter is that according to Scripture, being black is not the curse. According to Scripture, being black is not the curse. Being white is actually the curse, according to Scripture. To be white is to be cursed, according to Scripture. Okay, so but what Christianity have done is they have totally flipped that. Okay, they have totally flipped everything and whitewashed everything. But again, what we seek is the truth, the whole truth, and this is not about race and racism. This is not about putting anybody up and putting anyone down. This is just about the truth, the whole truth, and absolutely nothing but the truth. And so that's what we're seeking here this evening. So I'm going to go ahead, family, and I'm going to play an excerpt from this video by National Geographic. And the title of the video is Genetic Proof That First Man Was Black. Okay? The genetic proof that the first man was black. National Geographic, tracing genetics. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start this. I'm going to play an excerpt from it. We're going to come back and we're going to delve into some scriptures.
Person. The Bible gave us the idea of Adam. But finding the scientific version will take modern genetics. If we succeed, we'll link all men today back to a scientific Adam. And maybe even pinpoint his Garden of Eden. As people move from place to place, they often end up far from where their lineage began. Our family tree is becoming tangled at the top. Tracing family lines is getting harder and harder. There's only one way to clear away the tangles. Analyze Y chromosomes from people who still live in the land of their forefathers. To get a clearer picture of our family tree, Wells is leading a research project with the National Geographic Society and IBM. It's called the Genographic Project. It's a massive undertaking. It will take years. But when he's done, Wells will be able to tell where anyone in the world comes from. Wells and his colleagues have crisscrossed the globe in search of DNA samples. From Aborigines in Australia to tribesmen in South America. They've journeyed from Central Asia to South Africa to Siberia. Wells can already tell a lot about someone's origins just using their...
Let me just stop here for a second. Aki, I saw your flag go up. Aki Matat Yahu. Go ahead, Aki.
Yeah, Aki, shalom.
Shalom to you, Aki.
I was going to wait till you finish up the video. I just wanted to make a quick comment.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay.
So I'll wait till you finish the video.
Okay, great.
To that.
You're welcome, Aki. Praise Yah.
Y chromosome. And he thinks he's found something unexpected in the background of one of America's most famous figures. The third president, Thomas Jefferson. Research on Jefferson's Y has already given us one huge surprise. It had long been suspected that Jefferson fathered children by his slave, Sally Hemings. A 1998 study used the Y chromosome to prove that it was almost certainly true. It showed that this white man apparently had black descendants. Now, Wells believes he's discovered something about Jefferson that no one suspected. A discovery not about his descendants, but about his ancestors. And it could take us a big step toward Adam. Wells noticed that Jefferson's Y chromosome mutations don't look European. So where did Jefferson's ancestors come from? To find out the truth, Wells needs another DNA sample. The trail leads to rural Virginia. One of the closest living relatives of the founding father lives in Freeze, Virginia.
Now, do you have any sense of your own ancestry and who you're descended from?
Thomas, yes.
Thomas Jefferson. How many
Odine Jefferson shares the founding father's last name.
Yeah.
He also inherited his Y chromosome.
It's not going to hurt, and you rub it on the inside of your cheek, really scrape away, up and down.
Everything about Jefferson points to him being European. Genealogists have traced his ancestry back to medieval France and Britain. But the test reveals something you might never have imagined. Jefferson's Y chromosome links him not to Europe, but to the Middle East, what is now Lebanon and Syria. This is the best guess. A direct ancestor who lived in a land that no longer exists, called Phoenicia. The Bible calls it Canaan. Jefferson may look European, but his Y chromosome tells a different story. It shows that what we look like may not really tell us where we come from. And it raises a question mark over the traditional image of Adam. For centuries, artists have depicted him like this, like a European. For many of us, This is Adam, Michelangelo's famous painting in the Vatican Sistine Chapel. He looks like a beautiful Italian who spends a lot of time in the gym. Did the common ancestor of all men really look like this? The story of Jefferson suggests he could have looked very different. But Jefferson can lead us much further back than his Phoenician ancestor. Jefferson has a particular mutation that he shares with men from many different countries. With the same techniques used on Genghis Khan, Wells can link this mutation to another critical common ancestor. He's known as M9. He lived around 40,000 years ago. Wells' research suggests this one man could be the forefather of half of all men alive. We're getting closer to Adam. But Wells knows there are some men who do not have the M9 mutation. To identify the common ancestor of all men, he must take us deeper down the tree. But where does he go next? There are clues from beyond the world of genetics. It's evidence you can touch. Evidence from bones. Before the powerful new tools of DNA, our picture of humanity's past came almost entirely from fossils. But that picture is incomplete. The oldest human fossils come from Africa, dating back millions of years. But ancient remains have been found at other sites far away. The Middle East has produced early human fossils. And pre-human remains have been found in Asia. Fossil evidence points to 3 regions that could be the birthplace of humankind: Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Can DNA resolve which one gave birth to scientific Adam? Wells wants to find a place where people from all 3 regions intersect. A study of historical trading routes offers a likely candidate. Off the coast of Kenya, the tiny island of Pate. A mysterious place, with clues that seem out of place in Africa. Curious ruins.
It's the main mosque. It was painted black. Still see it.
Monuments that might be Islamic. Tombs that look almost Chinese. Even the faces suggest an intriguing mix. Some have the lighter skin tone of Europeans. Some could be Arabs. Others have eyes that look Asian. For centuries, traders have come here from all over the old world. From Europe, the Middle East, maybe even from China.
Jumbo. Jumbo. Jumbo.
History has created a genetic melting pot.
And by taking a sample of your DNA, of your genes, we can say something about the people you're related to in the past, your ancestors.
If the Y chromosomes here lead to a common ancestor for all these ethnic groups, they could lead us to Adam.
If you could open your mouth.
Wells takes samples from 25 local men.
Correct. Thank you. Okay. You could open your mouth. Where was your mother born? Syria.
DNA analysis proves there are men on Pate from all over the place.
Great. Thank you.
With ancestors from Africa, Europe, Arabia, India, and the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East. There is more genetic variation on this tiny island of Pate than in many countries. And the samples show something critical. They point to a new super ancestor.
And we
Even though the Y chromosomes come from all over the world, they almost all have something in common. A particular mutation that scientists call M168. In fact, men all over the planet share this mutation. Genghis Khan and the San Francisco Mongolians have it. Thomas Jefferson has it. Wells himself has it. Nearly 3 billion men share this mutation. And it means they're all descended from one man. It's a staggering thought. Genghis Khan could have fathered millions, but the man who first had this genetic mutation had billions of descendants. We're near the bottom of the tree. Could this man, M168, be Adam? There's only one problem. On the Kenyan island of Pate, Spencer Wells found one man who doesn't fit. His Y chromosome doesn't have the critical mutation. It's a crucial clue. And he's not the only one. There are others who are not descended from M168. So he can't be Adam. M168 is far down the tree, but not its base. And the Y chromosome from the odd man out on Pate gives us the final piece of our puzzle. The man's lineage originates in East or South Africa. Comparing this Y chromosome to thousands of men from all over the world reveals a critical discovery. These mutations originating in Africa appear on every Y chromosome in every man in the world today. These are the universal mutations we've been looking for. We followed the DNA trail all the way to the bottom of the tree. Every branch leads to one man, one Y chromosome. There must have been one man who gave rise to all men alive today. He is the ultimate super ancestor. He is scientific Adam. One of his descendants was M168. He was the forefather of the ancient Middle Eastern ancestor of Thomas Jefferson. He gave rise to Genghis Khan's Y chromosome. In fact, all the Y chromosomes in the world trace back to this one African man. He is scientific Adam.
All right, I'm gonna stop there with the video, family, and the rest of it is quite interesting, but I'm gonna stop there for right now. And this is where I'm gonna go to a key Yahuah, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna go to the scriptures. We're gonna start in Barashit, and we're gonna work our way through as we look at the origin of white skin, the rise of the Caucasian. All right, Aki, please go ahead, Aki. Mike.
Yeah, Aki, to that.
You're welcome, Aki.
Yeah, you know, this video right here is very informative, and you know, because we live in the age of information now, and you know, technology is so advanced the way it is. But before that all came about, you know, that establishment of the white supremacy type thing, you know, they had to perpetuate that idea worldwide to keep, you know, to elevate themselves above everybody else, and just put that whole white lie out there, yes. The great white lie out there to brainwash everybody. And it's been going on since, you know, since Europe came into basically came into power during the Greek Empire, and then moved so the Roman Empire, and then so forth and so on. that, like I said, they perpetuated that white supremacy type thing to elevate themselves. But they always knew the truth, but others didn't know. So, like I said, they had to perpetuate that lie. But now we in this age of technology and information, so they can't hide that lie no more. So they put a little bit. You got to be also. They'll tell a little truth, tell a little lie, because that stuff. Even that when National Geographics and everybody else, they still part of the same establishment.
Yes, sir.
So they'll put out. They'll tell a little truth and then and lie right at the same time they tell you the truth. So you got to understand. We got to understand who we dealing with, that they control the television, the movie theaters, the radio, the media, period. So they're going to tell you a lie and tell you the truth. I don't even know how they do it. They're I don't know how they, just a lie and the truth coming out their mouth at the same time. To that, Keith, thank you.
Praise Yahuah. To that. You're absolutely right. It's quite puzzling just how they can do that. But they're quite skilled at what they do. The lie and the truth coming out their mouth at the same time. A great way to put it indeed. Yes, that's what wickedness looks like. Yes, indeed. So now, family. So you see, we have, and I've said it and I'll continue to say it, but we have inherited many great lies. We have inherited many great lies. Just as we saw from the scriptures yesterday, in the midst of awakening there is confusion. And what's necessary to overcome confusion is us being diligent and consistent in searching and digging for the truth, being patient, being humble, being willing to unlearn, right? What we have been taught, because much of what we have been given our lives. So we've got to be patient. We've got to be patient with ourselves. We've got to be patient with one another, and we've got to stay alert to the fact that you know what? We've got to stay alert to the fact that it's possible that what we thought we knew, we're only going to find out a little bit later that was skewed. So there is always. So that's why there is so much confusion. But we just got to remain hungry. We got to remain humble, and we got to keep on searching and keep on digging. Okay, and that's the process. So we have inherited many great lies. We have inherited many great lies. We have been deliberately lied to. We have been deliberately lied to. Okay. For the purpose of white supremacy. That's what it's all about. White supremacy. That's why all the lies were told. That's why all the whitening was done. That's why all the whitewashing was done. For the purpose of esteeming what they then classify as race. One race above others, so-called races. Okay? And people protect that now fiercely. Okay? So we're getting into where whiteskin came from. If, as you see from that video, and no, it's not a matter of if. It's not a matter of if. As a matter of fact, it was never a matter of if. You see. It has always been an established fact. Because even if we read the scriptures, it's right there in the scriptures that the first Adam was a black man. And every major player in the scriptures, every major player in the scriptures. Oh, let me put it this way. Not every. Let me put it this way, because I'm going to show you the 1% that wasn't. There is 1%. There's a 1% in the scripture that's a major player that was not black, that was not melanated. Okay, even black is a terminology created by the white supremacist machine to put people down who were not so-called white, right? But 99% of the peoples and places in the scriptures are black people. 99%. 99%. We're going to talk about the 1% that wasn't. So 99% of the people we read about in the scriptures and the places that we read about in the scriptures, 99% of it and of them were melanated people living in melanated regions. Melanated people living in melanated regions. Okay? So how is it that if the scriptures, 99% of what the scripture speaks about take place in what's today called Africa, how is it that if 99% of what the scriptures speak about and the people that the scriptures speak about, if 99% of them are in Africa, and if 99% of the landmass referenced in the scripture, if that landmass is located in what's today called Africa, how is it, how can it be that all of a sudden everybody who read the scriptures seem to have this idea, or everybody who read the Bible seem to have this idea that the scripture is a European text? That's because of whitewashing, right? That's because of the lies, okay? So we're told that the Garden of Eden, what did the liars tell us about the location of the Garden of Eden? What did the liars tell us? That's where we're going to start. What did the liars tell us about the location? So we already talked about the fact that they told us the lie that the first people created were white. That's what we were told. The first people created were white, right? Yes. Noah was not white. He was an albino. An albino is not white. An albino is not the same as a Caucasian. An albino is different, totally different from a Caucasian. Okay, not to be confused with a Caucasian. Albino is not a Caucasian. Now, but where did they tell us? Yes, it's a lack of it's a lack of melanin in the skin, but albinos still have, for lack of a better terminology, albinos still have negroid features. You see, Caucasian features and negroid features are not the same. And albinos, though they lack melanin, they still have negroid features. Okay? Yes, and you do have Caucasian albino as well. Okay, yes, that's correct. You do have Caucasian albino as well. That's because their melanin gland, because Caucasians do produce melanin, but a very small amount of it. But there is a distinct difference between an albino. Most albinos you see them in among blacks. There are Caucasian albinos, but not as many. Most albinos you see them among blacks. But basically, the reason why that is because the gland that produces melanin is not producing it the way that it should, you see. In Caucasians, the gland that produces melanin, which is what gives you the darker skin pigmentation, that gland has become calcified. And that has to do with climatic influence upon the genome because of the regions in which they settled, and over a long, lengthy period of time, very long period of time, those environmental conditions impacted the genome and changed the genome. So when we talk about evolution, microevolution is an absolute fact, and we have to recognize that microevolution is an absolute fact. People evolve, animals evolve. Okay? People evolve and animals evolve. Everything evolves. Everything evolves. And guess what? We are still evolving. Okay? We evolve in a lot of different ways. And I'm not just talking about from the perspective of the looks of your, how you look outwardly, but I'm talking about even mentally. I'm talking because when you learn, you're evolving. You see, so evolution is something that affects us in a very real way and in every way. Okay, Christianity has told us that evolution is a very dirty word. Never think of evolution. And so we stick our heads in the sand and we deny the facts. And because we stick our heads in the sand and we deny the facts, that's why they have managed to keep us in darkness for as long as they have kept us in darkness. Okay? But it's time for us to get our heads out of the sand and to acknowledge the facts and to learn the facts, right? Now, going back to the subject of the garden. So they told us that the Garden of Eden, as they call it, which would be the Garden of Adan, they tell us that the garden is located. Where did they tell us that the garden is located again, family? Where does Christianity, where does white supremacy tell us it's located? Right, Iraq. Between Iraq, actually not even in Iraq. They say between Iraq and the Caucasus Mountains. Right? Between Iraq and the Caucasus Mountains. By the way, this is the same region that they gave the name Mesopotamia to. Okay? We have to understand, family, that maps, they have changed maps. They have rewritten maps. They have changed the names of places. We have to understand that. You see, family, there are maps from the 1800s. Today they tell you that the Euphrates River is located in Iraq. That is not the Euphrates River. We have European maps from the 1800s that shows the Euphrates River in Africa. Not only does it show it in Africa, it shows it in a place in Africa that the scripture says the river is located. That is, the river runs between what they call today Ethiopia and down into Southeast Africa. You see, so even their earlier maps tells the truth. But what have they done with those maps? Because you know why they didn't have a problem putting that information on maps earlier? They didn't have a problem putting that information on their earlier maps because they felt as if they have things covered. They have their bases covered. Because they had put fear in us that if we learned to read their language, then we were going to lose a limb, and if we didn't get it and try it again, we were going to lose our lives. So they figured that they have us so fearful that we would not learn to read. So because we don't know to read their language, then they had no problem putting it in writing. You see, for their benefit, for their purpose. I talked about that movie, the Nat Turner movie, The Birth of a Nation. And in that movie, when Nat Turner was a little kid, when the slave mistress, the woman, took him to live with them, and she took him into the library, and he went to reach for one of the books. She said, "No, those books are not for your kind, but I have a book for you." You see, she said, "Those books are not for your kind. You wouldn't understand the things that are written in it. You see, but I have a book for you." And the book that she gave him was the Bible. Not the scriptures now, the Bible, a corrupted translation of the scriptures. Okay? And that's what she fed him, you see. But they tell us that the river Euphrates is located in Iraq. They tell us that the garden is located in between the Caucasus Mountains and Iraq. They tell us that that's where Abraham came from. In other words, Abraham came from the Caucasus Mountains. Okay? And the reason why they tell you that is to lay claim to the idea. The reason why they tell you that is to lay claim to the idea that they are the people of the scriptures. So Abraham came out of the Caucasus Mountains, crossed over the river Euphrates. That's why he became a so-called Hebrew, because he crossed over the river Euphrates, coming out of the Caucasus Mountains. He crossed over. And so that's how he became now Yasharal come to be their land, you see. But all of that is just fabricated. All of that is a part of the whitewashing. So let's look at the scriptures. See the evidence that Yahuah has laid out for us. Again, we're looking at the origin of white skin and the rise of the Caucasian. So that's what the subject is. Now, let's look at the scriptures. Okay, and then I'm going to also share with you I'm going to share with you some other information here in a moment. Give me just a second while I get the scriptures on the screen. Let's see. Okay. First, we're going to go to Genesis, Bereshit, chapter. I'm going to start out in chapter 2. Okay. I'm going to start out in chapter 2 of Bereshit. Family, I don't think I have enough time this evening to cover everything on this subject. It's vast, but I'm going to try my best to cover as much as I can. Okay, I'm going to go to Bereshit chapter 2. We're going to come back to Bereshit chapter 9 in a little bit. Okay. But let's go to the garden. Now, the video that we just watched, according to National Geographic, it showed you. You know what's amazing? They showed in that video where they went to that place in that island, that little island there in Kenya or wherever it was. A cross section of a whole lot of people because it was a major trade route. And so you have all of these different people, you know, tied to different ancestry. And it showed both in their appearance and in their DNA. But then they came across one man whose DNA was different. He didn't have the Y chromosome. And so that told them that we need to look further. And what his DNA did was, his DNA led them to where? His DNA led them to, let me see if anybody caught that. That man whose DNA was slightly different from the rest, where did his DNA lead them? Yes. Where in Africa again? Southeast Africa. Southeast Africa. That's very important. That led them to Southeast Africa. So when they came across him, realized that his DNA was slightly different, and realized that his DNA actually lead them to Southeast Africa, now they're being taken even closer to Adam. Because you see, Southeast Africa is the location of the garden. Southeast Africa is the location of the garden, according to the scriptures. That's not what they told us. You see, they told us that the garden is located between Iraq and the Caucasus Mountains. Okay? But DNA evidence and the scriptures tells us that the location of the garden was in Southeast Africa. I dare to say that Africa is a garden. What they today called Africa, that Africa is a garden planted by Yahuah. Beautiful animals, beautiful forestation, lot of natural minerals and valuables. You see, that's the garden planted by Yahuah, the garden planted in the east. Okay, now let's look at Bereshit here, Bereshit chapter 2, and I'm going to begin reading. At verse 5. It says, "Now no shrub of the field was yet on the earth, and no plant of the field had yet sprung up. For Yahuah Elohim had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no man to till the ground. But a mist went up from the earth and watered the entire surface of the ground. And Yahuah Elohim formed the man out of the dust from the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being," or a living soul. "And Yahuah Elohim planted a garden in Adan to the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground Yahuah Elohim made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, with the tree of life in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And the river went out of Adan to water the garden, and from there it divided and became 4 riverheads. The name of the first is, they say, Paishan. It is the one surrounding the entire land of Haula. Now, let me continue to read. This translation kind of changed the names a little bit. Okay, but let's continue. Ahula, where there is gold. Where there is gold. Ahula, where there is gold. Let me ask you now, if the garden was located in the Caucasus Mountains, between the Caucasus Mountains and Iraq, is that a place historically filled with gold? Is that a place known for gold historically? Oh, I'm sorry, family. Wait, no. Let me put it on. It wasn't showing on YouTube. I'm so sorry about that. Didn't realize that. Okay. My apologies there, family. And let me make that. Okay, that should be big enough for you to see. All right. Now, so according to them, according to what they have fed us, the garden is located between Iraq and the Caucasus Mountains. Is that a place known for its gold? The answer to that is no. Okay? All right? And they're mountains, not rivers. Okay? All right? Mountains are not rivers where gold is found. Right. Okay? So the Caucasus Mountains is not a place known for finding gold. Okay? Now, and the same was true even in Africa, in America, even here in America. You see, in America you had gold and diamonds laying on the ground undisturbed, because the Indians and there were black people in America also. Okay, before Columbus so-called discovered America. You see, family, the lies are just falling off. They're just falling off one at a time. I remember just about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, if you talk about Columbus Day, everybody is up in arms. This year, several of my kids' schools did not acknowledge Columbus Day this year. Only one did. Only one school did. In years past, in recent years, every school acknowledged Columbus Day. But what's happening? Yahuah is using his people to expose the lies and to show the folly of their teachings. And now they're being put to shame. They have to abandon their lies, because the lies are being exposed in a way that cannot be denied. You see. And so they're abandoning their lies. You see. Yes, indeed. Yahuah is awakening his people to spread his truth. And as the truth is being spread, they're being put to shame. You see? And that's what's happening. Okay? So, here's the first clue. Okay? Here's the first clue. The scriptures tells us where the first man lived. Okay? And it was not in the Caucasus Mountains, as we have been taught by Christianity and by Judaism and by those who have stolen our identity. And if we just take the time to read the text, we see it. So it says that a river went out of the garden. This garden was in the east. Yahuah planted a garden in the east. Okay? And the river went out, verse 10 of Bereshit, Genesis chapter 2. And the river went out of Adan to water the garden. And from there it divided and became 4 river heads. The name of the first is Paishan. It is the one surrounding the entire land of Ahula. But let me say something. Now, they have the W. The W does not belong there. Ahula. Let me just say this real quick. Another thing that they do to keep us misinformed, to keep people ignorant of the true history, is that they change the language. You see, family, when we return to the true language and we begin to read the scriptures in the real language, we quickly realize that Europe don't have names that sound this way. You won't find a land in Europe called Ahula. Okay? Europe don't have those names. You see? This sound like African dialect. Okay? But what they do is they seek to keep us in ignorance, and they know that if they're going to keep us ignorant, then they're going to have to affect everything. They're going to have to affect everything. Affect and defect everything. They're going to have to change the language. They're going to have to change the maps. They're going to have to rewrite history. And they certainly did. You see? And so they changed the names in the text. So I've had people who argue with me about the language, sounding the language properly. They tell me, why you make such a big deal about sounds? I've had people arguing with me over this. Why you make such a big deal about words? Why you make such a big deal about sounds? I make such a big deal because in words and in sounds lies evidence for the truth. If we continue to speak a European dialect, then we will only continue to support the lies that we have been given. We will only continue to reinforce the lies that we have been given. You see. So, for example, when we named our son, they say Caleb. We didn't name him Caleb. We didn't spell it Caleb because we wanted to be distinct. We spell it the way that it should be spelled. And we tell them his name is Caleb, right? Because it is important. Because it tells his history. It tells our story. If I continue to say Caleb, and to spell it the way the Europeans tell me to spell it, then guess what? The only thing the European is going to say is that we stole their name. Caleb might be theirs, but Caleb is not. Caleb is ours. You see. So sounds are important. Spelling is important. And they know that. And that's why they change it. You see. That's why they change it. Now it says, and the river went out of Adan to water the garden, and from there it divided and became 4 riverheads. The name of the first is Paishan. It is the one surrounding the entire land of Ahula, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good. Family, the best gold is found in Africa, what they call Africa today. You have bdellium is there, and the Shoham stone, and the name of the second river is Gaihan. It is the one surrounding the entire land of Cush. Cush is what's today called Ethiopia. Okay, the entire land of Cush. Okay, and Cush is not limited just to a little portion now that they have called Ethiopia. The land in the old times was not as broken down as narrowly as they are today. So regions covered more vast space than they do today. Okay? But the name of the second river is Gaihan. It is the one surrounding the entire land of Cush. You see, so out of the garden flowed these 4 rivers, and they surround Ethiopia. They went around Ethiopia and all these other places in Africa. And the name of the third river is Haykal. it is the one which goes toward the east of Ashur, and the fourth river is the Euphrates. And Yahuah Alakim took the man and put him in the garden of Eden to work it and to guard it. I'm going to stop there. Family, what this text reveals, if we should take some time and go into it in a more in-depth analysis, what it reveals is that the garden of Eden was not located in the Caucasus Mountains. The garden of Eden, according to the scriptures, is located in Southeast Africa. And that's exactly what the video that we just watched showed us. That's exactly what the video that we just watched showed us. But that's not what they told us. So here is our next question, family, on this trip. Okay? Our next question is, if then mankind came from Africa, because that's where Adam was, if then mankind, the first man, Adam and Kua, the first man and the first woman, okay, in the rebirth of the earth, if the first man and the first woman in the rebirth of the earth was in Africa, that's where they lived, according to the scriptures and according to the video that we just watched, the excerpt from the video that we just watched. If that's where they came from, and if, as the video showed, that they were a melanated people, they were a black people, where then did white skin come from? Where did white people come from? Is it that there were two different first men and first women? Did we have Adam and Kua that came forth in Southeast Africa, but then there was another man and woman that came forth in the Caucasus Mountains? Because you see, another thing you learn when you study history is that Europe, the European nations were populated from the Caucasus Mountains. I hope I make that clear. In other words, I'm going to say it just like that again. And I hope you understand. If you don't, let me know. The lands of Europe were populated from the Caucasus Mountains going outward. In other words, the people who settled in Europe, the first place they settled was in the Caucasus Mountains. And then they populated the rest of Europe. That's out of the Caucasus Mountains came all of the different tribes of Europe. Okay? Out of the Caucasus Mountains came all of the different nationalities of Europe, so to speak. Okay? So here's the question. Did we have a black Adam and Kua in Africa, and then a white Adam and Kua in Europe? Is that what happened? No, that's not what happened. So if everybody started out black, if everybody started out from one man and one woman, and they were black, you see, family, another thing we've got to understand, that you can get the colors of the rainbow from melanin, but you cannot get the colors of the rainbow from non-melanin. What I'm saying is, you can get every color out of so-called black, but you cannot get colors out of so-called white. You see what I'm saying? Okay? So you can get everything, the whole spectrum of color come from so-called black. You cannot get the spectrum of colors from so-called white. Everything comes from black, so-called black. Okay? Now, so if it wasn't the case where you had a man and a woman, first man and woman in Africa, and then first man and woman in Europe. If everybody came from this one couple and they were black, they were melanated, how then did we end up with whites, blacks, so-called whites and so-called blacks, and everything in between? Asians, Chinese, Mongoloids, whatever definition has been given. How did we end up with so many different peoples is the question. Okay? Now, yes indeed, Aki. All right? So that's the question. So now I'm going to take you to an article. This was published in the one of their medical journals, and which was then published in the Washington Post. So I'm going to read an article for you, and then we're going to dig some more into the scriptures, and we're going to dispel some more myths, some more lies that we have been told. Okay, so we know, based on the scriptures and based on scientific evidence, that the first man and first woman, that everybody came from black. Every single person on the face of the earth came from one man and one woman. So says the scriptures, and science has also proven it. Science and what you call where they dig stuff up. Forget what I'm looking for here now. Archaeology. To the Aki. Science and archaeology. And babe, yes, to the. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, my wife said it just as you were saying it. She said, I said it too. Yes, to the. Okay. So science and archaeology proves that every single living person on the face of the earth came from a black man and a black woman. Okay? Science, the scriptures, and archaeology proves it. It's an indisputable fact. Okay? But how did that happen? How did that work? So if everybody came from black, how is it now that we have a Caucasian race? How is it now that we have white people if everybody came from black? Is it that, as it is said by some, that Yahuah caused a black man and a white man to come from one woman, and that is where the Caucasian race came from? No, that's not it. Okay? Now, we're going to look at more scriptures, but first, let's look at some science. Okay? All right. Let me just read from my Aki, Yahu here. Aki, it is wonderful to see your words on the screen, Aki. But let me just read before we go any further. I've been longing to hear from my Aki. He says, Shalom family, I am not able to speak due to paralyzed vocal cords at the present time. But I wanted to know if cremation was sinful or some sort of curse because I cremated my mother, and I was just given some knowledge from another site that say they teach of Father Yahuah that cremation is wrong. I am also praying for the recovery of my vocal ability. I love you all for your many prayers. Love, Yaram Yahu. Praise Yahuah Aki. And to the and I'm going to stop what I'm talking about here to respond to that. Aki, you know, in my study of the scriptures, I've seen in the scriptures at times, and it's not often, but I've seen where in the scriptures people were cremated. I don't have the sources off the top of my head right now, the references off the top of my head, but I've seen where people were cremated in the scriptures. However, what we most popularly see in the scriptures is a burial. Something else that we also see in the scriptures is where people were mummified. People of Yasharal were mummified. For example, Yahuah was mummified. Yahusha was mummified. Well, even archaeological evidence shows that even before Matzrayim, you find people in different places that were mummified. Even before Matzrayim became, you know, what you would call an organized or a power, superpower, you know. But again, what we find is the most common practice is burial, and even after they were mummified, at the when the time was appropriate, they had a burial for them. Okay, now, with that said, so what we desire most is a burial. You know, that's the standard basically. But you know, Aki, I don't believe that that you have inherited some kind of curse because you cremated your mom. Listen, we live at a time, and especially living in this captivity, where burials are extremely expensive. Extremely expensive. And the fact of the matter is that not everyone can afford a burial. And sometimes the only options we have left to us is cremation. Not because that's what we want to do, but because that's all we can afford. I remember when cremation just a few years ago was about $400 or $500. Today, it's much more than that, you see. And burials are much more. The average funeral cost, if you go with what they tell you need to go with, and unless you do your research yourself, but if you just go to a funeral home and let them guide you, the average funeral is going to cost you $10,000. Okay? The average funeral is going to cost you $10,000. That's the average funeral, you see. Unless you do a bit of research and know the ways of Yahuah concerning burial, and determine that this is what I want done. You walk in there with no knowledge, they're going to get you, you see. But nonetheless, even the basic funeral, a basic funeral, I'm talking about a funeral where you don't have a casket, you know, where you're burying your loved one the way that we are to bury them. But the basic funeral is going to cost you about $6,000. And so that's a lot of money. We don't always have that money. And so Aki, you know, at times we are forced in this captivity to do things that we would rather not do. It's the nature of captivity. But I don't want you to take upon yourself any kind of condemnation to feel as if that now you have inherited a curse because you had to cremate, and worry to think that because you had to cremate your mom and now as a result, you know, a curse is on you. I don't believe that to be the case. I know people teach things like that. People teach a whole lot of foolishness out there, quite frankly, is the way I see it. People out there put a whole lot of garbage out. Now we got to make sure that we don't become the garbage collector, you see, and end up running around with their trash. You know, they're walking around clean and we're running down the street stinking, flies following behind us because we're carrying their trash. Not our trash. We're carrying their trash, you see. So we've got to be careful that we don't pick up their garbage, you see, Aki. And I don't believe that Yahuah holds that against you at all. Again, I've seen in the scriptures where people were cremated, and I've got to go back and look up the references. I don't remember it all right now. And, you know, but I don't believe that to be the case, Aki.
No, the other thing to go with that right there is we don't own land where we can just bury our loved ones on
that land.
You know, even if you were going to just lay your loved one in the ground, you still have to pay over $1,000 to even bury them in, in places that we're allowed to bury them, which is cemeteries. So, how could you hold it against us when I don't even have a land of my own to bury my family in?
Yes.
So that's kind of, if people are teaching that's kind of messed up.
Yes.
To teach that right there.
Yes. Akut Vernice said, my mother was very understanding and she loved my brother so much. Indeed. So don't take that on, Aki. Don't take that on, and do not let the enemy try to weigh you down with that. Yahuah says, even if your heart condemns you, he is greater than your heart, and if the enemy seek to condemn you, certainly Yahuah is greater than he. But you be encouraged in that. May Yahuah continue to barak you, Aki. May he barak your voice, your vocal cords, and give life to them. And may he give you strength. Halal Huyah. Praise Yahuah Rapha. Yes, absolutely. Akut Mahalia says, what if you died in a fire? Some things cannot be helped, you see.
I don't understand why people think that, not saying his mother, but I'm just saying other people, that, I can do something for you that I couldn't even do for you when you was alive. I didn't have it when you was alive, let alone when you pass on.
All right. So now going back to the subject of okay. So if everybody, you're welcomed, Aki and Akut Yolanda. Now going back to the subject here of so where did white skin come from? If everyone came from black, where then did white skin come from? You see, family, we're actually more closely related than some people might realize. We have more in common. I'm talking about from the aspect of black and white or whatever. We have more in common than we have apart. As far as our makeup, you see, as far as us being people. But a hateful people have put in place a system and then have brainwashed others into buying into their hateful system. You see. Because, contrary even to popular belief, racism in America, the system of racism, it's a small number of white people that was involved in the fabrication of the system and maintaining the system. It was a small number of white people involved in the fabrication of the system and the maintenance of the system. Where the larger population of white people became involved is where the small number that's responsible for fabricating the system, building the system, and maintaining it, is where they put in the minds of other whites, sow in their minds differences about them and people who don't quite look like them. And then put in place a system of reward, a system to reward them. So if you go for a job interview, and if you're white and I'm black, then you will be most likely to get the job even if I have more qualifications than you. If we work in the same environment, even though I'm black and I'm black, you're white, you're more likely to be paid more than I because of the color of your skin. If you are walking down the street, minding your own business, and somebody shout out that you did something to them, the fact that you're black means that you're more likely to end up lynched, arrested, or beaten, simply because of what a few people put in the minds of others. You see? That's what racism did. Okay? It give the common white person a sense of superiority. Okay? It was put in their heads, this sense of superiority. And this sense of what we call was entitlement. You know, a lot of people, I hear a lot of white people talk about entitlement. And they talk about entitlement from the perspective of black people having a sense of entitlement. And you know what? The fact of the matter is, nothing could be much further from the truth. Because the fact of the matter is that in this country, whites have been given, they have been raised up to have a certain sense of entitlement. They say, this is our country. We deserve the best jobs. We deserve the best food. We deserve the best houses. We deserve the best this and the best that. That's a sense of entitlement. And when other people come who wants to work, and all they're trying to do is just work, then those with a sense of entitlement begin to complain. They begin to get hateful. They say they're coming to take our jobs. You see? They're coming to destroy our country. When in fact, it was never their country to begin with. The country was stolen and is still being stolen. You see? Now, yes, and certainly when our forced labors made all that possible. All right, now, so where did white skin come from? If everybody started out black, where did white skin come from? Let's look at some scientific evidence. Start there, okay? Now, the Washington Post a few years back posted an article. Scientists were doing some DNA analysis, DNA study, and they found, trying to figure out, they realized that people didn't start out white as Darwinism teaches, but rather, but Darwinism amazingly is very contradictory within itself. Because Darwinism, some aspects of Darwinism, there are people who are Darwinist who will tell you that the white man was the first man on the planet. And then you have Darwinists who say that the black man was the first on the planet, but he didn't start out black. He started out as a tadpole, grew up into an alligator, turned into a fish, turned into a fish, turned into an alligator, walked out on land, became an ape, became man, became black man, and continue to progress. And when you become white, then you have arrived. Darwinism, right? None of that is factual. None of it is true. It's all is ludicrous. But anyway, scientists found a gene for white skin. Okay, and this was an article published in the Washington Post on Friday, December 16, 2005. It says, scientists said yesterday, December 15th now, scientists said yesterday that they have discovered a tiny genetic mutation that largely explains the first appearance of white skin in humans tens of thousands of years ago. A finding that helps solve one of biology's most enduring mysteries and illuminates one of humanity's greatest sources of strife. The work suggests that the skin whitening mutation occurred by chance in a single individual after the first human exodus from Africa, when all people were brown-skinned. Notice they didn't say black, because nobody really is black-skinned. Okay? And all people were brown-skinned. That person's offspring apparently thrived as humans moved northward into what is now Europe, helping to give rise to the lightest of the world's races. Leaders of the study at Penn State University warned against interpreting the finding as a discovery of the race gene. Race is a vaguely defined biological, social, and political concept. You hear that now? They are careful. They don't want people to define this as the race gene because race is not really real, is what they're saying. Okay? Race is a vaguely defined biological, social, and political concept, they noted, and skin color is only part of what race is and is not. In fact, several scientists said, the new work shows just how small a biological difference is reflected by skin color. The newly found mutation involves a change of just one letter of DNA code out of the 3.1 billion letters in the human genome. The complete instructions for making a human being. The complete instructions for making a human being. That's the human genome. It's a major finding in a very sensitive area, said Stephen Offenheimer, an expert in anthropological genetics at Oxford University, who was not involved in the work. Almost all the differences used to differentiate populations from around the world really are skin deep. The work raises a raft of new questions, not least of which is why white skin caught on so thoroughly in northern climes once it arose. Some scientists suggest that lighter skin offered a strong survival advantage for people who migrated out of Africa by boosting their levels of bone strengthening vitamin D. Others have posited that its novelty and showiness simply made it more attractive to those seeking mates. Nah, that's nonsense. The work also reveals for the first time that Asians owe their relatively light skin to different mutations. That means that light skin arose independently at least twice in human evolution, in each case affecting populations with the facial and other traits that today are commonly regarded as the hallmarks of Caucasian and Asian races. Several sociologists, and others said they feared that such revelations might wrongly overshadow the prevailing finding of genetics over the past 10 years, that the number of DNA differences between races is tiny compared with the range of genetic diversity found within any single racial group. Even study leader Keith Sheng said he was at first uncomfortable talking about the new work, fearing that the finding of such a clear genetic difference between people of African and European ancestries might reawaken discredited assertions of other purported inborn differences between races, the most long-standing and inflammatory of those being intelligence. I think human beings are extremely insecure and look to visual cues of sameness to feel better. And people will do bad things to people who look different, Sheng said. The discovery described in today's issue of the journal Science was an unexpected outgrowth of studies Sheng and his colleagues were conducting on inch-long zebrafish, which are popular research tools for geneticists and developmental biologists. Having identified a gene that, when mutated, interferes with its ability to make its characteristic black stripes, the team scanned human DNA databases to see if a similar gene resides in people. To their surprise, they found virtually identical pigment-building genes in humans, chickens, dogs, cows, and many other species, an indication of its biological value. And I'm going to stop there for now on that with that article. All right, family. So what we see is, so the scientists accidentally, you could say, doing some research on a fish that had stripes, they basically messed with one of the genes and realized that when this gene is messed with, that the fish no longer produced its dark stripes. And so they decided to look at the human genome, and what they found was that humans have a similar genome that does the similar gene that does the same thing, and that gene is found in chickens and other animals also that does the same thing. Okay, so what science have shown and what archaeology have shown is that over the years, what happened? Number one, we have to understand that the earth and human beings are far older than Christianity have told us. And so over thousands and thousands and thousands of years, human migration, going in, changing climate, living in different atmospheres, that led to a change in the genome, which then led to white skin. Okay? Which then led to white skin. All right? Now, so let's take this back to the scriptures. Okay? Let's take this back to the scriptures. Now, we're told, family, that by the liars, we're told that, again, we're told the same people who in one breath say that black people, that basically some of the same people who believe in Darwinism, who say that black people are inferior because they're not fully evolved. Some of the same people also go back and contradict themselves and say that black skin came about because of the curse of Ham. Okay, now I hope that we all here know that the curse of Ham is another lie given to us to have us feeling inferior and to put us down. Okay? But according to Christianity and according to Judaism and according to the different denominations of Christianity, they all teach that people became black after Ham was cursed. That's what they teach. And they say that you can find that in the scriptures, when the fact is that it's not written anywhere in the scriptures, because nowhere in the scriptures do we find that Ham was cursed. Okay? Now, what does the name Ham tell us? The name Ham tells us that Ham was a melanated man. Okay? But he was not melanated. He was not brown skinned because he was cursed. He was melanated because he was a part of the original state of mankind. You see? That's how man was. That's how man looked. So if anybody is cursed, would be those who look different from Ham. You see? It's not even in their Bibles. So what does the scripture actually say about Ham? All right, let's start there, family. Let's start there. We're talking about the origin of white skin and the rise of the Caucasian. In Bereshit, Genesis chapter 9, beginning in verse 1, it says, and Alakim Baruch Nach. What does it say? Did it say that Alakim cursed Nach? Did it say that Alakim cursed Noah? Nach. That's who they call Noah. Did it say that he cursed him? Or did he say that he favored him? He Baruch him. Right? It says he Baruch him. He favored him. Okay? Didn't say that he cursed him. So right there in verse 1 of chapter 9, we see that the lie, the myth, is dispelled. Okay? The myth is dispelled. We also need to recognize the importance of Bereshit, Genesis chapter 9 and chapter 10, in understanding the development of nations. Us understanding Bereshit chapter 9 and chapter 10 is critical to us understanding the development of nations. Okay, not races. Yahuah never created races. He created nations. the Caucasians created races. Yahuah never created races. Okay? All right? So Yahuah did not curse Ham. He Baruch Ham. Okay? And Elohim Baruch Nach and his sons. He Baruch Nach and his sons, and said to them, bear fruit and increase and fill the earth. He Baruch Nach and his sons. Now you're going to learn who his sons were. And the fear of you and the dread of you is on every beast of the earth, on every bird of the heavens, on all that creeps on the ground, and on all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they have been given. Every moving creature that lives is food for you. I have given you all as I gave the green plants. Okay? Now some people, the Christians, you know what the Christians do with this verse, right? The Christians who want to feel comfortable with eating their swine and eating their sea cockroaches and eating all the unclean stuff that they eat, they come over here to Bereshit chapter 9 and verse 3, and they proudly poke their chest out and they quote from this verse. They say, God said. Of course, God didn't say anything. He's a mute. They said, God said, every moving creature that lives is food for you. I have given you all as I gave the green plants. Now, they missed the importance of that last part. They said that the Creator, Yahuah, they don't call him Yahuah. They give his esteem to an idol. But they say that the Creator says that every living creature is good for food. He has given every living creature for food. But they missed the telling part of this verse. He says, every moving creature that lives is food for you. I have given you all as I gave the green plants. The question here is, can we eat every green plant? Can we eat every green plant? Can you go out there and pick yourself a handful of poison ivy and just chow it down? Cook it up, season it, and have a feast? Can you go out there and just grab whatever you want to grab? Oh, it's green. Yahuah said he gave me every green plant for food. You will be a dead fool. You see? And in the same way that every green plant was not given for food, then every living animal also was not given for food. You see? So the latter part of that verse is very important and very telling. But of course, the Christians who are accustomed to chopping up the scriptures certainly don't pay any attention to that. You see? All right? Now let's continue, because that's not what we're on anyway. But do not eat flesh with its life, its blood, but only your blood for your lives I require. For from the hand of every beast I require it, and from the hand of man, from the hand of every man's brother I require the life of man. Okay, I'm going to fast forward for a little bit here, family, because we have a lot more to cover. Okay. Now, I'm going to kind of be skipping through this chapter 9 as we go, okay, because we have a lot more to get to, a lot more scriptures to get to, and time's running out. And Elohim spoke to Nach and to his sons with him, saying, so Elohim, Yahuah, not only spoke to Nach, who they call Noah, but he also spoke to Noah's sons also, all right, the ones that he favored, the ones he baruch, okay. And I establish my contract with you and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the birds of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, of all that go out of the ark, every beast of the earth. And I shall establish my contract with you, all three of you, and never again is all flesh cut off by the waters of the flood. And never again is there a flood to destroy the earth. And Elohim said, this is the sign of the contract which I make between me and you, and every living creature that is with you, for all generation to come. And he says, I shall set my bow in the clouds. Okay, let's fast forward now a little bit more. All right. Now, let's go down, and we're going to pick up now at verse about 17 or so. Or verse 18. And the sons of Noah, who went out of the ark, were Shem and Ham and Japheth. The sons of Noah who went out of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And Ham was the father of Canaan. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and all the earth was overspread from them. And Noah, a man of the soil, began and planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine and was drunk, and became uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brothers outside. So Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and went backward, and covered the nakedness of their father, but their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. Before I go any further, let me stop here, and I want to dispel another common myth that we inherited from Judaism, that many of our people continue to believe in and repeat and treat it as if it's truth, but it's actually a lie. And that is that there is a doctrine out there proclaimed by Judaism and believed by our people that says that so Ham was cursed because he laid with his father's wife, because it says that he looked upon his father's nakedness. And what Judaism does was Judaism went and took from the book of Uyakara, the book of Leviticus, the text that warns not to look upon your father's nakedness, as in to lay with your father's wife. They went and they took that and say that this is what Ham did, and as a result Ham was cursed. Well, Ham was never cursed, number one. And number two, the context here shows you clearly that that's not what took place. That literally, what Ham did was, when he went in and saw that his father was laying drunken, asleep and naked, instead of covering him up, he went and basically made fun of his father. And his brothers, on the other hand, what they did was they did the honorable thing. They did not even look upon his nakedness, but they went backwards with a sheet and they covered their father. Context clearly makes this plain. So I don't know why our people continue to be so gullible to believe the lies of the liar and then to repeat the lies of the liar. Number one, to treat it as if it should be believed when it came from the lips of a liar. Number two, to treat it as if it is really so. Okay? So context reveals that he was literally laying there naked and without his clothes on, and instead of Ham covering him up, doing the honorable thing, he went and made fun of it to his brothers, mocked him, while his brothers, they didn't do what he did. They went and covered up his nakedness, wouldn't even look at him naked.